Okay, today is a very special day. We have a very special guest, a dear friend of mine, somebody who's very, very important to me, the one and only Jessica Rivera. Thank you so much for being here, Jess. It's really, it's a long time in the making, and this probably wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Excited is definitely a word that I would use to describe this, but again, you know how much you mean to me. I think you've been a big part of this even happening. So I want to give you, before we even get started, I want to give you your flowers by letting you know that the truth is this probably wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for you and your coaching and you're, for people who don't know, she's coached me in business. Now I consider myself someone who's a leader, and I coach a lot of people and I develop people, and and even still, I think why it's important to mention this is that because people feel like they've reached a certain point that almost it's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't need a coach.
Yeah.
But it's, I wouldn't say you've taught me things that I didn't already know, but you held me accountable. You said, hey, let's put a plan behind that. You know what you need to do, but hey, when are you doing it? So you held me accountable and you taught me some, strategies and techniques to make sure that I was getting things done. So I want to say thank you to you because again, I would not be here with this podcast and the training company.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that. And I appreciate you saying that. And you bring up a really good point as far as people feel like they've arrived, right? I got here and I don't need a coach anymore. What's crazy is that I think Oprah said just the other day, she has several coaches for different areas of her life, a life coach, a business coach. And so, I mean, when you think about sports, right? Even the best players still have a coach, right? Because we can't see our own blind spots. And I'm working, and I love people like you who say, you know what, maybe I do need somebody, because I'm working right now with a CEO of a law firm. He has several offices around the country, and he still wants to get better because there's always another level. It's like, I will say personal growth and even leadership growth, it can be a little annoying because there's always a new level to get to. It's like, I think, oh yes, I conquered that. And then there's a new person, a new thing, as we're dealing with people.
Yeah.
And typically when you're growing your organization, that's one of the most difficult parts. And so that's what I love the most. I'm like, give me all your people problem. Let me help you.
That's what it is. And it's, in us starting our training company, that's one of the biggest things we find. I remember how much training I received, right? Coming up as a salesperson. I mean, as a new salesperson in the industry, yes, we were kind of thrown to the wolves, but at the same time, I was somebody who wanted to look for information, but I had great leaders who were giving me insight. They were giving me their knowledge. So my thing was, I learned early on, hey, learn from other people's mistakes too, right? And then I had a great mentor. He was my sales manager, but he was also a mentor, Fred Smallwood, who said, hey, look at this book. And it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Like I had never read a book, like humble beginnings, but I never I wasn't that reader guy, I read comics, like that's the kind of stuff I read, my school books, whatever I was mandatory to read. Right. But personal development, he was the guy who introduced me to it. And I think nowadays, especially in automotive, right, and maybe in other industries, we want the people who either work for us or work with us, right, salespeople, to be really good, right? But we forget the investment that other people made in us, and we're not willing to make it in them. And I see that, we've talked about that with these dealerships or industries where they're like, yeah, we need help. I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with that. I'm like, hey, we can help you solve your problem. Like, well, how much is it?
Right.
Well, how much does it cost you to keep doing what you're doing? Yeah. Like, how much are you losing, right? So that's huge. And I love what you're doing. I remember when we first spoke and you were first thinking about doing this, which we're going to touch base on that in a little bit. But I want to start from the beginning. I want to rewind a little bit. Let's talk about you and your upbringing. Like, where did you grow up?
Yeah. So I grew up in Brooklyn and Queens. And so I moved to Queens when I was in the 8th grade. So I have my Brooklyn, I always say my nasty side, nobody wants to see the Brooklyn side of me. That's what I always say.
I get to see it all the time. All right.
No, trust me, you have not even seen it. And then my nice side is my Queen side. But nowadays, again, through all of the the personal development that I've done and the beauty of being a coach and teaching others is that I have to live up to what I
Mhm.
teach, right? I
Yep.
do. At least that's how I feel. And really have to ask myself these tough questions. But anyway, going back to what your question was, so I grew up in Brooklyn and Queens, and then spent most of my life in Queens, then moved back to Brooklyn, and then moved to Long Island. And so
So maybe I got the Long Island side because I mean Long Island side is probably the nicer
it's
side.
probably
There's,
the
yeah,
nicest.
Long
It's the
Island,
most
Queens.
mature.
I got you. Got you.
It's the most mature.
Got you.
But that scrappy Brooklyn side, that's what not only helped me survive in auto, but helped me thrive 100%. I felt with my dealers that when I was an individual contributor, like I could be my complete self. I had the boroughs, the Bronx. The Bronx was one of my favorite places to go because it was
Probably
like
still is.
they were scrappy. Yeah, right. But they were scrappy, and I loved it, and I just felt like I could see myself within them. And that definitely helped me in sales. And while I will tell you, I never thought I would be in sales.
Mm.
I was horrible at public speaking. I did not like speaking to anyone. I remember I took a sales class when I was in college for a while, and I was so afraid when I got up there. My whole face was like purple, red.
I've been there.
And everyone was in the class said that what I said was really good, but my face was so red. So I never thought I would have been in sales, but definitely growing up in the boroughs of New York helped me.
Well, we're in sales, and no matter what you do in life, you're in sales, all right?
Oh,
I
100%.
feel like you're selling yourself. If you're even if it's you're trying to meet somebody or you're applying for a job, or you're selling yourself, right? So
I mean,
that's
the waitress, everybody, no matter what, we're all in sales.
100%.
Yeah.
So now, growing up, I always ask this question: what did as a child or growing up, what did success look like for you? Like, what was your image of success at an early age?
Yeah, at an early age, success I mean, honestly, and I'm lucky, I always felt like we had a lot of love in my house, and that was success.
Yeah.
And so it's like I was always close to my parents, my siblings, and like my house was the party house, and I felt very loved. So that felt like success. And then also just doing better than my parents was like, I never was the person who needed all of the things.
Sure.
But I became that person at some point. But I will say that really the goal was just to do better than my
All
parents.
of the things. Let's be clear.
Yeah,
all of the things.
Yes. Now I want all of the things and then some.
Okay, good for you, and you deserve them.
Yeah,
You deserve them because you. What I love that you're doing is that you're pouring into people. You're helping people find.
It's my
their
favorite thing to
voice,
do.
and that's huge.
Yeah.
My thing growing up, I didn't. We talk about this often. Is that success to me was I didn't see myself as a doctor, or I don't know, for some reason we didn't see that in our area. Right? It was more so like take care of your family type of situation. So, I want to ask this question: how did you end up in automotive in general?
Okay, so
What did actually, you know what? Before that, what did you do before you got into automotive?
Okay.
This is a huge question.
Okay, yeah. So I'll answer both. So I was in marketing, and I was in a small boutique interior design firm. And it was the first place that I had worked. I had been in corporate, traveling from the boroughs to the city every single day since I was a kid. This job was my first one where we weren't in the office all the time. So
Okay.
she was interior design. So we'd go to all these fancy homes and we're all in their space. And I loved it. And so I was moving though from that firm to Ogilvy, which is a huge marketing company in the city. It was like, really good. I was really excited. And I had already accepted the offer. And a friend of mine who owned a car dealership called me out of nowhere. He said, I don't know why, but I thought about you. And I was wondering, would you want to be a finance manager? I didn't even know what a finance manager was. No clue. I mean, I had bought a couple of cars, but no clue what that was. And so I was like, I'm not sure. I don't know what that means. And he was like, well, how much are you making right now? And I remember I was making, I think like $80,000 plus, but obviously a lot of benefits that come with corporate. And he was like, well, what if you worked with me and I can make sure you double it in a year?
Wow.
Now I was a risk taker, single mom, 2 boys. And at that time I had just broken up. I had just had a breakup. And prior to this breakup, when I was with him, he was one of the people in my life that really showed me a different life because he grew up like upper middle class. And he did extremely well for himself. His family did really well. And I remember the first time his parents lived in Atlanta, I went to go see him and they lived in $1 million house. This was back then.
Yeah.
Beautiful, huge house in Atlanta. And I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want for me. This is what I want for me. Now, he and I didn't work out. And so when we broke up, I still had that desire. And so when that offer was made to me, like, oh, I can guarantee we're going to double your salary within a year. I was like, screw it, let's try it.
That's great.
And Ogilvy was pissed. They were like, you accepted the offer. But it felt right and I did it. Now, the first day, okay, so yes, I said I was from Brooklyn, but I was from like the Queens side of Brooklyn for those New Yorkers that know what I'm talking about. So now I'm in the middle of Flatbush. Day one, we're talking day one. This was a used car lot, my friends. And, scrap, but listen, I was not about that life anymore.
Yeah.
So I get there.
You wanted to be in the $1 million house, and now you're in Flatbush.
Exactly. I'm used to, corporate America. And the person gets into an argument, the finance manager gets into an argument with the customer. The customer's this tall guy. The finance manager's not that tall. And they are in a screaming match. We're in a tiny little office. I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? So that was my first experience in the car business.
So how long did you do that for?
So I was so I will tell you, so I did say, oh my God, what did I do? But it still felt kind of exciting. And I will also tell you that was the first job I had where I felt like I could be me.
Wow.
Because in corporate America, it's like you're really just trying to fit in because you're the only. I was a woman of color. I'm from the boroughs. Like there's not many of me around.
Yep.
And so in the dealership, though, I felt like I can completely be myself. It was my favorite and I felt like I was working with friends.
That's awesome.
So that was so much fun. So 3 months later, not only did he teach me how to be a finance manager, I was running the finance department by myself because he went on vacation after 3 months. So I felt like, oh my gosh, this feels amazing. Now, obviously, the car business comes with a lot of hours. And my kids were growing up. And at the time, I had a live-in that she would stay in my house 4 days a week. And then I had off and whatever. And I'm like, my son's about to be a teenager and he is not going to listen to this lady. He's just not going to listen to this lady.
You have great kids, by the way. I know your kids. They are awesome kids.
Thank
so
you.
You've done incredible jobs.
Thank you. So I said, I need to make a decision. So I used to have the reps come in. And to me, in my mind, I was like, this is what I need in my life. It's a mixture of corporate America and still I'm still in these streets.
We are 3 minutes in and you're talking about breakups and being in the streets. All right.
Yeah. No, listen, I like to go deep. Like I'm having real conversations over here.
That's what we're going to do.
I do not do surface level. We're having real conversations.
Absolutely. You are going to call it how it is.
I'm always going, and I'm a bit of an open book, right? So to me, and this goes back to the leadership coaching side, is that I need to be the first, right? If you're in a leadership position, I need to be the first being vulnerable, the first saying I made a mistake, the first doing everything. So I do, even now in my position, lead by example, right? And I'm going to show you where I messed up, and I'm going to show you the things I did great as well. But anyway, so yes. So that was my first experience. And then when I saw the bank reps coming in, I was like, that feels like it could be for me because it's going to be a beautiful mixture of corporate structure, which I did kind of miss that. Because, the world that I was in the moment was a little kind of all over the place because it was used cars and we were doing really well, but still. And so I ended up moving to corporate. I did nothing else. I never sold a car. I never did nothing. I went straight to F&I, and shout out, talk about giving somebody their flowers, to Gustavo, who was my friend that I had known since I was 12 or 13. My name popped in his head. It's like God just works like that, right? And my name popped in his head, and he had given this opportunity to other people, other friends of his, and it did not work out. And I ended up staying with him for over 2 years before I went on the bank side. I had an edge and I had an advantage because then when I went to the bank side, I knew exactly where the dealers were coming from. They couldn't lie to me. I'm like, tell me the truth from the beginning because that is not how that works because I know because I was in your seat.
That's huge. Yeah.
And then I also had the corporate structure mindset behind it. So when I spoke to owners, I had that knowledge and ability to kind of speak the corporate speak as well. So I felt extremely comfortable in that role when I was an individual contributor.
No, you definitely had a presence. I remember when we met, I was at Mercedes-Benz in Brooklyn.
Yep.
And you were talking to Mitch Blattman, who was my finance director at the time. And you definitely you control the room. And that's huge when it comes to that environment, right? Because there's so many legal ramifications if you're doing business, and you're not following the guidelines and you're stepping over that line to get a deal done, making sure that you're not a pushover, right? And that people are going to listen to you when you come in and you're saying, hey, that's not right.
Yeah.
That's huge. So I love that.
I will say this though, it is a good thing, but it could also hurt you.
Sure.
And I'll tell you because unfortunately, and I also didn't know the power of my presence, especially when I was first starting out. And so I remember someone said to me, oh yeah, so-and-so doesn't like you. I said, doesn't like me? Why? And he was like, because the last time you came here, you just came and took over the room. Now, I was not doing that on purpose, right? I like in my head, I'm like, everybody's friends. Like, it's like, I have something valuable to tell you. So number one, I didn't realize the power of my presence. And number two, I didn't realize all of the value that comes with that. And so I learned that over time.
So we're going to kind of go off this script for a minute. Where does that come from? Like you say, the power of your presence.
Yeah.
So that's because I see it. We know that you have that, right? I feel certain people, like when you walk into the room, you notice that person. I feel like I'm one of those people when I walk into the room, I'm going to be noticed, right? So where do you feel that comes from in a person?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I think we need to really think about, especially if you're leading people, right? Some people do kind of just have it, and that's because they believe in the product. I always felt like I believed in what I was selling, so it made it very easy for me to tell you, no, let me tell you why this works. I also came with a level of experience that you couldn't really BS me, right? So I think all of that played a part. I knew what I was doing and I knew I had value to bring you. So I wasn't afraid necessarily to speak to anyone or to tell you. Now, and it was more of an offer. You don't want it, you don't want it.
So this is huge especially for salespeople. I don't think if you may even realize how important this is for even new salespeople.
Oh yeah.
So we talk about in our sales training, confidence closes deals. And when you speak, you have to speak from a place of authority, right? Not in a speaking down to people, but as the expert in that in the industry. Like you need to know what you're talking about, and you need to come across as, hey, I am very deliberate in my words, my actions, and I know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the customer will feel that confidence in you. If you don't have that and you have that uncertainty in your, let me speak to my manager and let me find out if I can, and I'm not sure if I can, and maybe I can, and let me see if somebody. When you start doing that, you lose that credibility. So
completely lose it.
I love that. Confidence, big part of that. What else do you think is a big factor in
Well,
that?
let me go back to the confidence thing, because many people think I just need more confidence. I need to find more confidence. I think the other way, and people also say, some people are just born with confidence or not, right? People say that. See, I actually believe that we're all born with confidence, right? Because nobody says, like, babies get up and walk, like they get up and do things, right? They don't necessarily ask for permission. The problem is life forces us to sit down and speak when you're spoken to and ask for permission and wait your turn.
Raise your hand,
all of that, right? We've all been conditioned that way. And so I say we don't have to find more confidence. I say we have to remember that our confidence, but that does come with us also being prepared. And I will also say that even when you think about the world that you grew up work-wise, so we get told to speak when spoken to at school. So we're taught that very little, potentially in your home. Then some leaders, especially if they're insecure, they also want to control the narrative. So sit down and let me, right? So we have to take a hard look in the mirror as people leaders, that if we don't like our teams and we don't like our staff, I always say, if you're complaining about them, you're actually complaining about yourself. And so you need to take a long look in the mirror. Maybe they're the bad hire. Okay, you did that, or somebody did that. Maybe you're not coaching and developing them. So sometimes, yes, it is about that confidence, but we have to pull it out of people, because I think it's there in everybody. I do. I know I've had leaders disagree with me, but I know, because that's happened to me. I have been able to bring the confidence out of people. They think it's like, oh no, I remember a DRM, a sales rep. I'm on a ride along with her, and she's like, the owner we can't take up too much of his time because whatever the reason was. We were in there forever.
I knew it.
We were in there forever. So we go to lunch, and I said, hey, so what do you think happened? And she's like, oh no, well, it's different because you're there. Right? It's always different. It's different.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. When you were in the dealer, because she was actually a dealer at 1.2, how did you feel about sales? Oh, I loved my sales reps. Okay. How did your owner feel about sales reps? Oh, no. She could. I said, do you think maybe that's where that thought process is coming from? Right? So we take and we assume, we make all of these assumptions all of the time, and we're all dealing with we're bringing our own traumas, past things to the forefront, instead of testing and saying, okay, no, I got this. I've done my homework. I'm bringing value. And if they don't want a lot of time, that's cool too, but let me at least make the offer. But no, we're already walking in. And that's why I talk about the power of your presence. See, we walk in knowing I got something to give you, and you're going to want this. Other people walk in knowing, oh, they're not going to want to be bothered. And so you really have to decide, what is your intention? What presence are you walking in with into that conversation, whether it be at home or at work? You have to figure out what's the energy that I'm coming in with. Because we feel the energy before people even speak.
100%. No, that's huge. And I, like you said, even as with our kids, we kind of steal that from them sometimes as parents when we're having a bad day, or I know I'm guilty of it. All of a sudden they're doing something and I'll snap because of something I'm dealing with. So we have to definitely be mindful about that. Anything else before we move on about confidence? Yeah. Anything? Tell me about confidence as far as because now there's the physical presence, right? You have that confidence. Then you have to obviously know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. What else would you consider?
I would also say confidence. Also, if you feel like you need to find it or get it, action. Action is what's going to give you the confidence. I had never sold a warranty. I didn't know what a finance manager was. I didn't know anything. But the second I started doing it, I was like, oh, yes. Now, confidence, action breeds confidence. And so if you're stuck in the how, in the when, in the what they're going to say, how am I going to do it right? How am I going to do it wrong? What if I mess it up? You're never going to gain confidence in that area ever. And so it really starts with action. And even if you do it wrong, you're going to learn and rinse and repeat. So it's like a muscle.
That's the other thing for leaders too, is, give people opportunities to fail, because that helps them grow. Right. I have a dear friend of mine, and he was telling me how in his business, he's looking to bring on somebody to kind of run the business for him, but he can't really find somebody to do it the way he does it. And I said, wait a minute, you didn't do it the way you do it now. When you first started out, you made mistakes, right? You weren't this person when you started the business. So give people the opportunity to make the mistakes and then have that confidence. That's how, like you said, that's how we grow as individuals. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced when leaving the dealership and now going to the corporate side on the bank side? What are some challenges you faced?
Yeah, like I said, you move for me, I moved from dealership to the corporate world, or back to the corporate world, and there were not a lot of people that looked like me. Mm-hmm. There were not a lot of people that sounded like me. I used to get comments all the time like, oh, you're too New York. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't get the corporate jargon, when they say one thing and they mean another. And so what I decided to do was keep my head down and work harder, right? That's what I was taught. That's how I was raised, right? It's like the grit. The problem is, though, working hard is great, but visibility matters. And speaking about what you are actually doing really matters. Luckily, I was in sales and there's a leaderboard, and people above me were asking, well, what's up with her? Right?
So what
Because
were you doing at this time?
when I was an individual contributor, I was
What does that mean?
sales. I was in sales.
What were
I
you
was
selling?
financing, auto financing
Okay,
to
so
dealerships.
you're on the bank side.
Yep.
So when the customer comes in and they need a loan, the dealership contacts the bank
Right.
to get the loan for the customer. You're the one selling the loans and the trying
Well,
to
yeah, it was
solicit business.
B2B. It was business to business. So my accounts were dealerships, right? All the dealerships. I had all of the dealerships in the 5 boroughs and Westchester.
So yeah, I want obviously our listeners and viewers to understand. So you're the bank side of the car industry.
Right.
You're the person. Your team are the people who are approving the loans and
Correct.
or declining the loans.
Right.
And so you obviously know all the ins and outs of why something gets approved and why something doesn't.
Correct.
Get approved.
Correct.
And that finance background lends
Right.
to that. So yeah, absolutely. And you're 100% right. In that industry, we know the automotive and the banking side was for a long time dominated by men. And I think having someone like yourself is, super refreshing.
You know what I used to love? I used to love when they would say, "You're the best looking rep." I'm like, "Who are you
Yeah,
comparing me? Who are you comparing me to? There's nobody else. There's no other women."
Yeah,
Like, it
Steve
was
is
me,
Steve
and
is
that's
like
it.
200 pounds.
I'm
Yeah.
like, "Are you comparing me to like Kenny from Capital One? Like, who are you comparing me to?"
Kenny is not gonna like that. All right.
I think I told them that before back in
Is
the
there
day.
a real Kenny?
There is a real
Okay, I
Kenny.
didn't know that. That's great. That's great. All right.
So climbing the corporate ladder, right? So I end up running the team, and I end up bringing in $4 billion, $4 billion into the organization in what they call originations every single year. And it came with its own challenges, right? I had a really challenging boss, so difficult that somebody in the field, not in my company, said, "Jess, I heard your boss is really," I said, "Yes, she is." And so that Brooklyn side often wanted to come out, but I also wanted to keep my job because I loved it. And so that's really where I fell in love with coaching,
Wow.
because I had to look within, because I knew I couldn't change her. It was so bad, Christian, that the president of my company called me one day. I was in Buffalo on a ride along and said, "Jess, I know, I'm going to tell you, I know what's going on there, and we want to keep you." And so they gave me a $50,000 bonus.
Wow.
It's called a retention bonus, just to keep me, because he knew that she was giving me a difficult time. And she didn't know that happened. Her boss didn't know. There was only 2 other people that knew, and I had to sign an NDA.
Wow.
So they knew it was really, really challenging, but that's where I really fell in love with coaching. So I always say she gave me the gift of like really looking within, and I didn't want to treat my team the way they treated me, which I had inherited an all-male team. And that's really where I started doing the real work. And I became a better person. I became a better mother. I became a better friend. I became a better everything.
All right. So I want to get into how you decided to start your own coaching and developing business. Because I know when we had spoken, this was the beginning of the pandemic. Like, I think we're still allowed outside, right? And you were
Well, it
telling
was
me
the summer,
Yeah,
but it was 2020.
summer of 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And because it was hot out, I remember. And what made you say, "Hey, you know what? This is what I want to do"?
So I will say I was very happy in corporate, right? I had, it's, those moments where you kind of just like hit your stride. Like everything feels easy. The team felt easy. The money was coming in. I had been doing a lot of work on myself. I started like heavily meditating in like 2017, which was like prior to me ever meditating. I was like, how am I ever going to do this? But so I had done a lot of work on myself, and I had a pull, like a calling, I guess you could say, that it was like I just wanted to teach everybody how to treat people at work. We spend so much time at work. And see, I know you spoke about your amazing mentors and bosses. I didn't have that scenario per se. And while it was challenging, a lot of that is what got me to where I was. So I wasn't necessarily mad about it, but I'm like, damn, it could have been a lot easier. And when I looked at people that I know, people I'm around, they also had challenging leadership. And I think a lot of that is because we're not taught. A lot of us become bosses, managers, leaders because we were good individual contributors, right? But now it's a whole new skill set
Absolutely.
on how to deal with people. And I'm like, it's really not as difficult as we make it. And I wanted to give everybody the skills because I knew, listen, I had somebody on a PIP. PIP is like, you're about to let them go. He bounced back. And it wasn't, while there was a lot of challenges in the beginning, once it clicked for him and I saw it click for team members over team member after team member, all different walks of life, men, women, white, of color. And I'm like, if I could do it, anybody can do it.
Sure.
And I wanted to give other people the same skill set.
But wait, so now I love that, and I know that that's your space. Like I feel like you were this is a path that you have been on to just that's where you're supposed to be, because I think you do an incredible job with it. I've seen you in front of rooms with people, and I see the impact you have on people, and it's great. But here you are, kids,
Yes.
career, start a new thing. Like
Yeah.
pull is one thing, but it's just like now execution is, and when we talk about that, it's
Yeah.
like how do at that point it's good. How at that point do you say, hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
do this?
Yeah. Leave the security.
Yes.
Right. So I'll tell you what
Oh,
happened.
we're getting comfortable now.
I'll tell you what happened. Something happened. Something did happen. Okay, so I don't remember the year, but I had been doing really, really well. And my boss at the time was one of those guys, like if anybody's in corporate, they know it's like, so we do it like year-end reviews and there's a scale from like 1 to 5 and nobody gets a 5 because nobody's perfect. You know that thought process, right? And he was just, tough.
Which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I see that a
But
lot.
that's how it is. So he was tough. But I had gotten rated really, really well. Now going on my second year. But not only me. This particular year, I had like 5 people on my team getting 5s.
Wow.
Which, you know what that means? I was probably going to get a 5 as well, right? And so I'm like, nobody, you couldn't tell me nothing. You couldn't tell me anything because I know how hard it is to not only for you to get a 5, but to give your people 5s also. I mean, they were not, and I'm not an easy grader either, right? It's based in results. And so I was excited. This was happening. That year, he had told me, mid-year, Jess, like, I have nothing to say. I have like no feedback at all. You're doing really great. Your team is doing really great. And you're at the top of the pay band, right? So in corporate, there's a pay band for every. Okay. So we're probably going to have to get you some kind of promotion. We'll have to get you a promotion because you're at the top of everything and doing really well. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah. Like, I'm about it. Like, let's do it. I want to say literally it was like less than 4 weeks later, a promotion came up and they gave it to somebody, which was very unheard of in our department. They would post for it. They would, even if they knew who they were giving it to, they would still interview for it, right? Because even, just to create the bench. And if I had not done the work on myself at that point, I think I would have been like spiraling, angry, and then I would have been disappointed, and then I would have been asking myself, what didn't I do? Who didn't I network with? What, like the whole thing. And I did none of that. I said, this has to be a sign that this is not the place for me. Because if I'm doing everything right, according to everything, according to the feedback, according to the metrics, according to my paycheck, and they still wouldn't even give me the courtesy of giving me an interview.
Sure. Just to get at least a conversation.
This has to be God telling me that this is not the place for me. That was a sign. That month, very next month is the month I hired a VA and started my Instagram.
Wow. So, wait, so you're still there?
So I was still there.
Still there.
I was still there.
Doing that. That's great.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
And how is that, at what point did you say, it's time for me to?
Yeah, it was less than a year later. It was less than it felt like I was doing 2 full-time jobs. Because my job wasn't, while I felt I had a great handle on it, it was not it was challenging, right? It was $4 billion just doesn't come,
Sure.
just like slide into the organization easily. And I had a large team and I was tired. And so I finally had decided I was going to and I kept my job because I wanted to test it. You can't,
Sure.
what if I hated it? What if I couldn't find clients? I mean, Instagram was a whole new world.
Yeah.
I had never spoken on camera like that. I had never done an Instagram live. I had never spoken on my stories. I had never done my personal Instagram. I put pictures and that's it. I wasn't the type of, and we've all known people that like Facebook, they would go and talk. Like I was not like that.
Just to not to cut you off, but one thing, and I know, and I've told you this before, one thing I love about what you did, and just for people out there who are listening and watching, you put yourself out there. And I talk about this. Like, I remember getting a notification that you were doing a live, and I would go on and you'd be in mid sentence and there was nobody else watching. And you were still going as if there was like a room full of people or like a ton of people watching. And I remember it just being me. And I'd be like, somebody else needs to log in. Like, oh, somebody else, come on, somebody, come on, like, rooting for you. And then just, you would go. And then, no, because I think it was more so you were connected with your passion or your purpose, right? And you were just putting out the information. So I want to talk about how important it is to just do, even when nobody's watching, because we know where that's led to, what that's led to. So talk to me about that.
Well, what we do when nobody's watching, that's our integrity, right? But in the context that you're talking about it, that was me putting in the reps. Right? That was me putting in the reps. And while sure, I could allow the vanity metrics to mess with me, meaning like, what if nobody sees it and it's embarrassing and he came on and nobody was there? Sure. I mean, I'm human. I'm sure that went through my head at one point, but it is bigger than me, right? When we make it about us, then that's where the ego slips in. Right? The ego will have you not doing what you want to do because you're afraid of, I don't know, fill in the blank.
Yeah. And it's, I talk about this with my kids. I'm like, we get so caught up. And this is, again, with doing this and how long I've wanted to do this for and how many years people have been telling me, you should be doing training. You should write a book. You should teach people how to sell. And I never wanted to do it because and so many people do this, they get caught up in the couple of people that they are around them that it actually stops them from reaching the people that are beyond their inner circle. And those are the people who want to hear your message. The people around they're like, oh, whatever, that's just I'm sure I have haters and people that are like, oh, when I left the car business, how many people were like, he'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be back. Watch, the car business is impossible to get out of. And here we are 6 years later and I'm still not in the retail space, right? But when you push past the opinions of those couple of people around you, you start reaching those other people. And that's where I think you've done an incredible job.
Many times people see you as far as their limits.
I love that.
Right? And so, sure, maybe, whatever. But the second you start thinking about yourself and thinking about your bigger purpose and thinking about this is not about me, it's about what I have to offer. It's about the one person. And I used to tell you this all the time. This is only about the one person that this is going to touch. That was my only goal at the time.
Yep.
Right? So my goal wasn't, 50,000 followers. My goal was to touch the one person because the reality is for the business that I'm creating, I don't need 1 million people. I need, like the woman who called me from Chase the other day. Hey, we need you to do a training for 200 women internally.
Wow.
Right? That's what I need. I need the person who called me from Sherm and asked me, I'm doing a speaking engagement in the fall for Sherm, which is a huge HR organization for over 900 people. That's who I need. Right? And so the message, and actually this call that I got from Chase just this week was like, till this day, I see your stuff on LinkedIn. I love it. We need you. That is consistency. That is the rep after. And listen, I don't get a lot of engagement on LinkedIn, but I still put my stuff there.
Yep. No, that's a huge lesson for people in any space that, they're holding back because they're afraid of what may not happen and they lose out on the potential of what could happen, right?
Well, they're putting their own limitations.
Yep.
They're
Absolutely.
putting that their own and others people's limitation on themselves, right? And so this is for you were talking about the new sales guy, and this is really for any of us. And so really, I asked somebody the other day. I was attending I do my own retreats, but I was attending a retreat, and I asked this woman. When I tell you she's a phenomenal singer, I mean, her voice was so unique and gorgeous, but nobody hears it. Okay. So I asked her, well, what do you have to release? This is a question I often ask myself. What do I have to release to get to my next level?
Hmm.
And she said, honestly, I've done so much releasing. I don't think I need to release. I don't know, whatever it was, fill in the blank. I said, well, if you're not where you want to be, you still have some releasing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be I want to control. I want to control how many people I'm serving. I want to control, or I would need to release a thought process about fill in the blank. You still need to release something. And in some cases, you need to release the people around you.
Absolutely. No, because they'll hold you back. Absolutely. They'll put some shade on your stuff, even if they're not saying it verbally. You kind of feel it. Talk about communication styles. I love that about you. You kind of identify the way people communicate. I feel like when I'm speaking to you, you're always like assessing, like, where's he coming from with this, or what maybe it's like
I'm
what
never
traumas?
assessing. What
No?
trauma? What trauma does he have? Oh,
Yeah,
he
like-
just checked that trauma box.
Exactly.
No.
No, but you know what? Even when we had conversations with things that I was dealing with, you would listen and you would say like, "Hey, maybe you should try doing this." So let's talk about the communication styles. What communication styles do you feel? And in automotive, communication is probably one of the areas where we can improve the most, especially as leaders, right? We get into these roles, and managers get promoted to sales manager, whatever it is, and now they're behind a podium, and instead of being with their teams, they're literally on a tower. Like you have to,
literally.
you have to, and it's crazy. So, what communication styles do you think would benefit the most in automotive?
Yeah. So, there's several different communication styles, and we can bucket people. But this is what I want everybody to take away, because communication, number one, that's my jam. Number two, it's where I was the worst. And so many times, our pain can become our purpose. And what I would love for all of us to do is, number one, say what we are really thinking. Say what's really going on. And many times we don't know what's going on. And so we don't have the language. So let me give you an example. Many times when we're mad, angry, frustrated, we're really just hurt. Our feelings are hurt. But it feels so much more vulnerable for me to say, you hurt my feelings versus I'm pissed at you. I'm pissed at you feels a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right? And so if we, number one, take a moment to understand, what do I feel right now? What is it that I really feel? I remember in the very beginning when I was continuing to work on myself, every single time I got frustrated, angry, upset, I would stop and ask myself, what's really going on here? And the second I do that, I'm no longer angry, because now I'm in a space of curiosity. And so when we come from a space of curiosity with ourselves first, because this is what I love about us, is that we are quick to, and I had this conversation not so long ago, but wait a minute. Jess, you're trying to tell me it's me. But what about when that guy acts like a jerk? What about when that girl, what about, everything is situational? Sure, we can say that, but the truth is that we have to look in the mirror first. And if we don't, we can continue blaming. And that's what we've done our whole life. So I want to stop for a second and say, if that's working for you, cool. But if it's not, then I would say take a moment to stop. And let me just talk about me for a second. Just this month, I'm going through something that had me upset, sad, hurt, fill in every single blank. And after crying about it for 2 days, yes, I still cry. But after doing that, I was like, okay, let me ask me, what am I still trying to control here? What expectations did I put on this person? What's really going on here for me that I can release and allow this person to do what they're going to do, because I know it will come back. I know it will be better. I know this is going to work out, just not right now. And sometimes we have got to release the timing that we're on so that things can work itself out the way they're supposed to.
See, now, that's great. I love that. But, and I'm going to push back a little bit. For a lot of people out there, that might seem great in theory, but how do you
Yeah.
channel that? And I think this is where you come in and teaching people the skill set to, when you're in that moment
Yeah.
and you're in that heated conversation and the person's pushing your buttons and
Yes.
they're in your face and you don't want to be like, okay, let me analyze this
Okay.
situation.
Listen, all of this happens in 2 seconds.
Exactly. So
All of this can happen in 2 seconds. Let me tell you what to do. Let me tell you what to do. So let's say you're pissed.
I'm going to write this down.
Let's say you're pissed. Okay. So honestly, though, I do have a data framework. Let's do this. And all of this can happen in a minute. Let me write this down so make sure I remember. So D is for discover, right? Number one, I want us to take every interaction that we have with people as information. It's just data. They say I'm a jerk. Okay, that's information, right? I could ask a question. I could discover, okay, wait, how is that making me feel? Why would he think that? And I'm going to allow him to think, right? And then the next A is that we actively listen. Okay, another skill we're not very good at, okay? So we're going to, instead of being like, what? You said what? Then we're at it. Okay, no, so when you say this, what do you mean by that? You say I'm a jerk. Okay, give me an example. Give me an example, okay? So now we're going to actively listen. Now, if we can't actively listen,
so I love that you said that. Like, you said something once, and you say it a lot, where it's like, how did you want that to impact me? Like, how do you want me to feel with what you just said?
That's one of my favorite questions. When the next time you get offended, ask the person, how did you want me to feel when you said that? And they're gonna be like, what? Someone said to me that she asked her, I don't know if it was her boyfriend or whoever, that question. He said, I don't know, you're you. You're you.
Oh, but everything had intent. Like the words had intent.
So she let him get away with that. Mm-hmm. So you said, no, but you had an idea of how you wanted me to feel. I could tell you how I felt, but how did you want to make me feel? Right? So again, go from a place of curiosity. And listen, some people say, okay, you call people out this way. Sure. You call people out this way, but you also make them think. And by the way, you can have this preconceived notion and be wrong. So either way, it's a win-win. Okay, so we're going to actively listen. First, we're going to discover. Then we're going to actively listen. Okay, number one, how am I feeling? How are you feeling? What happened? How did you want me to feel when you said that? Now I'm going to I'm not going to wait to respond. I'm going to actively listen. So T, now we're asking real questions, targeted questions. So, okay, you would have told me, Jess, when you said blah, 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 that's how you came off like a jerk. Okay. When you say I came off, and then we're going to ask a very specific, targeted question. Then we're going to listen again, and then we're going to articulate ourselves. Now we have all of the information we need to say, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I could have done that a little bit better. Or, listen, I understand, and don't justify yourself, because if it's BS, you know how people will just like argue to argue, and you know you're wrong. Mm-hmm. Why are you arguing with me? That's what I tell my kids. But then
how does that go?
You can truly, you know what? Honestly, I said the story the other day. My older son said something to me, and he's like, I don't know, you just came off really aggressive. And I was like, that's what you think is aggressive these days? I am doing a phenomenal job. I'm doing great. Because I was like, I just asked him a question, and he didn't like the question.
But now let's look at that, right? Like you said something that you didn't feel that was aggressive at all.
Yeah.
He interpreted it as
correct,
being aggressive.
Yeah. Then you ask another question.
Who does? He does, or you do?
I do. Because he already told me, you just came off really aggressive right there. So I would say, okay, tell me how so.
In your tone.
In my tone. Okay, what didn't you tell me?
When we say something like, well, that's what you think is aggressive? Yeah, I know.
I was joking. I was joking
with
him. But I said, okay, tell me what about my tone came off aggressive. And here's the thing. My energy behind it is true curiosity.
Gotcha.
Because I don't want you to think I'm being aggressive.
Yeah, so I think some people can misinterpret or right, the person receiving it can misinterpret the energy, or the person that's giving the message cannot deliver their energy properly.
And in the beginning, especially in the beginning, I remember I was preparing for this conversation because now I'm a little better, I'm much better at it, but I would prepare for it and the conversation wasn't going the way I wanted. And I thought to myself, okay, wait, what was my goal? What was my intention? What was my real, like being honest with myself? And my intention was to manipulate. My intention was to get what I wanted. And so we have to be real with ourselves, right? So if I want you to be open and honest and I want you to come and show love to me, well, then I have to give you, again, like I said, leaders go first. That means I have to hold you accountable, be honest, do all of these things first. And that's the other part. People want people to hold themselves accountable, yet they won't do it, meaning they won't have a real conversation with them. And you and I know, because you and I have had very real conversations where I'm like, well, did you really want that? Because your actions are not matching your words. And people won't simply even have those type of honest conversations with their staff. And then they wonder why why you have to repeat yourself a million times, why people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, all of these things. It's like, you're not holding them accountable. And probably because you're not holding yourself accountable.
That's great. The one thing, as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing that, and we do this, maybe we do it subconscious, maybe we don't do it at all. But communication is something you have to practice.
Oh,
and it's like literally, like, I think we just do it naturally. Like, this is my communication style. But especially as leaders and parents and spouses, right? And friends, even in all of our relationships, we got to look at, hey, how do I communicate as an individual? And how am I coming across? Like, I'm doing it with myself. I know who like my little guy, one day, we're outside of a 7-Eleven and there was a dime on the floor, right? He's like, and he kind of like walked by. He's like, oh, a dime. And he kind of walked by. And he goes, I said, you gonna pick it up? He goes, it's just a dime. And I go, well, you never have $1 if you don't start with a dime. He goes, such a motivational speaker. And he walks away. So I'm like, am I that guy, right? Who's like always trying to teach, right? And it's like, do I come across as that to him? So we have to be mindful.
Which gets very annoying.
Exactly. So even, my dear friend E.T., Eric Thomas, right? Like one of the best motivational speakers in the world. I was hanging out with his son, and one of the questions I asked his son, I said, how does it feel? He's like, yeah, it's cool. People come up, and I'm like, no. I know how it feels for other people to listen to E.T. How does it feel for you as his son? Because I want to find out what my kids are hearing from me, right? And he goes, oh man, sometimes it's just like, I just want him to be dad. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need the motivational talk. But he did say that those conversations that they did have stick.
Oh yeah.
And something had happened, and a month or two later, it was about to happen again, and he realized that, hey, let me take care of this now before they get home, right? And it was just one of those things. So it's great. I love that, and I'm learning so much from it. As far as making sure we identify who we are as communicators in any environment.
I think also questioning who we are.
Yes.
Right. And again, if I think about one of the things I used to always do and actually continue to do is question every single one of my beliefs, the beliefs I have about myself and the beliefs I have of others, because when we're conditioned. Right? We're all conditioned. So whatever conditioning our parents have, or whoever raised you, then they gave that to you, plus your environment. I want to unlearn everything I've learned and then now be super intentional. How do I want to come across? How do I want to speak? How do I want to communicate? How do I want others to look at me? Because we can control the narrative. And so when I understood that, that's when everything started changing for me 100%. I came out of a meeting, I remember, and someone I had worked with for a very long time turned to me and said, Jess, who was that in that meeting? Because I've never met her before.
So one thing I want to ask, and this is huge for, and again, anybody in any industry, how do you identify your communication style?
So listen, again, I was corporate. I have gone through all of those like trainings on identify. I even do DISC assessments. But I want to say, stop putting ourselves in a box. So what I want you to do, instead of trying to figure out what's my communication style, what's your community, like the mirror and match, like all those trainings, which is important. But what I would say is try to identify, how do you feel and how do you want to make the other person feel? That makes it a lot easier, I think. So it's like, if I'm aggressive, which people have said, I'm on the
Just a few
aggressive
people.
side, right? Or if I'm like an introvert or I'm an extrovert or I'm an ambivert, all of those things.
Ambivert. What's
Yeah,
that? I've never heard that.
that's the middle
Okay.
where I can be an extrovert, but I also could be an introvert, right? Ambivert.
I'm going to ask you a question. It's not to interrupt, but do does having different communication styles lend to maybe losing your authenticity?
Mm. Hmm. Well, so this goes perfectly into what I was just going to say. I think when we really try to hone in on who do we want to show up as,
Hmm.
now I'm not trying to fit into whatever box you have me in or that I have me in. I'm trying to figure out how do I feel and how do I want to make you feel? Right? From the most authentic place possible because authenticity and that word gets thrown around a lot, but that is the magnet. That is how you will get people buying from you.
Hmm.
That is how you will get promotions, your authenticity. So let me give you a quick story about how I was like, you know what? I need to do a little bit more of that. Now, grew up in the boroughs. I feel like, what you see is what you get type of personality. But in corporate, I felt like I need to be professional. In Buffalo at a meeting, all white men at the table, me and one guy of color who came in. He was new to the organization and he flew in. He was telling a story that I was mortified. I was like, OMG, I cannot believe he is telling the story in front of these people. And you know what
Hmm.
they said? Ah, they loved him. They loved him. I needed to bring him back. And I thought to myself, they loved him for the same reason I loved him because he was authentic and he was real. Now, do we have to tell everybody everything? No, we do not. But the energy behind it and the authenticity behind it was what had him being a magnet. So instead of trying to figure out, okay, what's my communication style? Figure out, and I will say, we think we know ourselves. We do not. We think we know others. We do not. Start asking yourselves these tough questions. How do I feel? How do I want to make the other person feel? And then your authenticity will come across and the way that you communicate will probably change when you start coming from a place of curiosity. Oh, I want you to feel seen and heard. Well, then you have to make the person feel seen and heard by asking questions and by listening. And so instead of trying to put ourselves in a box, I would say, because listen, salespeople, let's just say your new sales guy, he may be afraid to say, hey, I don't know. But if he's coming from a place of curiosity, hey, I I know a lot of things, but I've never learned this one before. So can someone help me? And just with that level that you were saying of like confidence,
Sure.
it's like, okay, we've all been someplace where we don't know everything. So I really think that instead of putting ourselves in a box, it's really trying to figure out, okay, how do I want to come across? Who do I want to be? Who am I becoming? And do my behaviors match who I'm becoming?
Wow. That's strong. That's strong. I think it's somebody. I remember one time I was this is years ago when we were younger, and it was like a family party, and there was somebody was recording those big camcorders, not the one with the
Yeah.
light, but the big camcorder. And I remember watching that video. I was probably like my early 20s, and I was in the back having a conversation, and it looked like I was having an argument. And you couldn't hear the words,
Hmm.
but the way I was speaking to the person,
Yeah.
I remember. And as you're talking about this, I'm literally remembering that and realizing that, hey, if just based on the external view of that conversation, I looked like I was in an argument. Now, I don't remember if I was in an argument or not, but I think it's important. And maybe, I don't know your opinion on maybe even recording a conversation that you're having with somebody and listening to how I remember having to listen to my phone calls when I worked at Chase Auto Finance. And I was like, that's not me. How many people, like, we listen to phone calls with our reps and they're like, that's not me. Like, you don't even realize what you sound like. But then the tonality and almost like what comes across as the intent in your tone can be
Yeah.
something that you don't even realize.
Yeah.
So is that something that you would recommend? Is like,
Oh,
hey, record a conversation?
100%, especially if you're having a difficult conversation especially with like someone that you've had long-term disagreements with, definitely record yourself. Practice, another thing we don't do.
Mhm.
And if you're doing any kind of public speaking, I always start with record yourself.
Yeah, no, you don't want to wing it when you're doing like a public speaking gig. That's something I always tell people. It's just like you have to rehearse it and rehearse it some more. So I really appreciate. I mean, there's so much information. I have a couple of quick questions before we wrap up.
Okay.
Okay. Um, Knowing what you know now. Okay, and let's start. We could do this in kind of like stages. Your younger self, you know, I'd say pre-corporate environment. What's some advice you would give to let's say, I'm not going to talk about your age, but a younger Jess?
Younger Jess, pre-corporate.
Doesn't have to be communication based. Could be
Yeah.
anything. Any advice you'd give yourself?
Yeah,
younger
I would
self?
say, I would say, I would say there's a lot of power in your presence, right? When you realize the power of your presence, you're not just everywhere. And so really picking the people, your environment carefully. I think that's a really big one. And making sure that I'm not limiting myself, right? Because of whatever preconceived notions that my environment has for me. So definitely thinking bigger, thinking much, much bigger.
What are some hurdles that you've overcome? I'm throwing this in there that you've overcome because I know what you've done is incredible.
Thank you.
And I give you so much credit, so much props for what you're doing and where you are. And I can't wait to see where you're going because I can see the trajectory and it's just incredible. What are some hurdles, both professionally and maybe privately, that you had to overcome to get to where you are now?
I mean, so many, and I still do, right? So it's like, I still question, okay, what beliefs do I have to release? What ideas do I have to release? Where am I the bottleneck in my own business? Because that is a real thing. And 90% of it is mindset, right? And so I'm at a point in my business where I really need to do the boring stuff, not the speaking engagements. Those are fun for me, right? And the next challenge, and the more people, and who am I going to touch? And you get instant gratification, right? I get to touch the people. That's the fun. The not so fun is all the systems and all the other things that I have to put in place.
Eating broccoli. My friend CJ, he says people don't want to eat the broccoli.
Yeah.
Like that, the healthy stuff. Like they want, the fun
Yeah,
stuff. But that's
exactly.
what gets you to the next level.
Right, exactly. And so I need to continue putting those processes in place that will keep on feeding the machine. And so that isn't necessarily the fun stuff, but that's really where I'm at, and just making sure that I continue to keep my head down and put those things in place.
What about the struggles? I mean, for the person who's, hey, like they feel like, hey, maybe there's a lane that they feel that they can be in, and they're in that corporate job, and they're making money, and they have a family, and they have to pay bills. I know I've been there. What are some of the struggles you've had to overcome, and how did you overcome those struggles going on your own and starting your own company? I mean, I know how crazy it is. So
Yeah.
let's talk to that.
Yeah. So, mortgages and money, that's a real thing. And the story I continue to tell myself is that if there's an organization that will pay me multiple six figures, then I need to believe in myself. That's where I was at. That's what I was ready for.
But how did you know
that?
That there was a corporation ready to pay you?
Because corporate was paying me that. My job,
Thank you.
my current job was paying me. So listen, they saw something in me that had me at that level. And so if that's the case, then I needed to take a shot on me. But I was prepared mentally to do that, because really your number one block, my number one block, the reason why I didn't get promotions earlier is because I was the bottleneck in my mind, right? I was limiting myself. I thought I needed to do more, have more, be there longer, make another friend, network more. I thought all of these things. That was me putting limits on me.
And it's also, and so many people, myself included, have put this, what we call it, like those golden handcuffs, right? Where you're
100%.
making great, I always say, after starting my own business, I realized how much money I lost by having a really good job.
Yeah. Well, I always say I would never, had I had some managers, like leaders that I had seen others have, like that were amazing, that they're still amazing,
Mhm.
I would not be here either
Yeah.
because I liked working. I always wanted to be
Sure.
an exec in corporate, run teams and do all that. I loved that.
The fact that I got to wear a suit every day to work at Mercedes Benz, like, and like I've always said, I'm a GED student, immigrant parents, I child at an early age, arrested at an early age. Like, and to me, I was just like, I made it. And I almost, like the hours that I was putting in, it was almost like a badge of honor, which I'll be honest with you, I look back at it now and I regret it because I missed out on a lot with my kids. But I was almost just like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
15-hour day, 16-hour day.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
and then somebody, a dear friend of mine, John Kuzo, I remember I put on a post, it was the end of the month, and I put like something, I worked like a 16-hour day and like, left the house at 7, getting home at 9 or whatever it was. And then John Kuzo, who's a very important person to me, said in a comment on Facebook, he wrote, "You can't buy back time."
Time is only real currency.
And I was like, wait a minute. Like I said, I almost had this like almost ego behind me, but I was working really hard for everything I was getting. But then I realized that, wait a minute, it's more so if I really followed my path and my journey, and there have been struggles, that. There have been hurdles, there have been obstacles, and there have been insecurities, and the imposter syndrome kicks in. And then, like you just said, I realized that someone was paying me hundreds of thousands of
That's
dollars
right.
to run their business for them.
That's right.
Like he was like, hey, that's the guy that I want run my business while he was with his family, what he was on
That's right.
vacations. And I'm like, wait a minute. If I can do it from him, I could do it for myself. So
That's right.
That's huge. I love that.
That was what I told myself. And I said to myself, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah,
I
you
go
can
back to corporate.
Go back. That's it.
That's it.
Oh.
And then in my case, I had the car world and corporate. So I'm like, I can find a job anywhere.
Absolutely. So sometimes you got to, go all in on yourself. And
That's
I guess
it.
the biggest thing is like,
But I was mentally ready. You have to be, I believe you have to be mentally ready because it's a daily job to believe in yourself. And it's a daily job to be motivated to actually execute.
I'll tell you something. I don't think you need to be ready. And here's why I say that. I wasn't ready.
I don't think you need to be ready. I think you have to be mentally ready to
mentally
believe
ready.
in yourself.
I wasn't mentally ready.
So then why'd you keep on doing it?
So here's what happened. So I was fired. One of the best things that happened to me in my life. I had a general manager, I'm not going to mention his name, but I was fired from a position, from a company that recruited me for 3 years. And then when I got there, all of a sudden, management changed. I have a new GM, basically said, you guys are all overpaid and all these things. And he fired me. Shortly after, he fired all the other managers. I mean, 6 months later, he was fired. But when he fired me, I always had, my office was always nice. Like my office was like a little spot. I had my plants, I had my basket of fruit, and I had my books for everybody to pick and read, and I had my coffee machine there, and I always had a nice scent in my office. It was almost like I wanted people when they came to my office to feel comfortable. And I literally, like a couple of weeks earlier, they were talking to me about moving up and running another store for them. And when he came to me, I was like, are you joking? Like, I thought it was a joke because he was like this, like, wannabe funny guy. And it's the truth. He wasn't very funny. But when he said it, I couldn't even believe he said it. And then I was fired. And I packed up my stuff. It was January 31st, last day of the month. And I remember packing my stuff into a box, and I had to call an Uber to take me home. And I put my stuff, it was a minivan, came to pick me up, and I buckled my box. And like, people were like in shock. They were like, what? Like, this is not happening. And putting my plant into a box, and my books, and all my stuff into a box. And I buckled the seatbelt for the box, and I'm in my suit, and I'm like, what just happened? I was not prepared mentally at all for what was about to happen. And I remember calling my wife, and I was like, I just got fired. She's like, hey babe, how's it on your way home? It was like 9:00 at night, end of the month. And I'm like, I just got fired. She's like, like, what are you talking about? Like, she didn't believe it. These people recruited me for 3 years, were sending me messages to come work there. And I remember saying, I will never give someone the opportunity to tell me you're fired again.
That's what made you prepared.
So, but I wasn't prepared.
But that's what made you prepared.
So I had that first step, and I see what you're saying, but I had that first step in the, hey, I have to make this happen. And it was one of those things, like you said, that I told myself that someone trusted me to run their business. I can do this for myself. And I said, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to start my training company. I know I can add value to people's lives. I had like Eric Thomas, the number one motivational speaker in the world, is like a friend of mine, right? Like he's family. CJ, like friend of mine, like all these guys. So I have access and I'm like, I just need to make this happen, right? And then those bills come in and the insecurity is like, oh my God, what if? And then in March, pandemic happens. Nobody's investing in training. Like literally I'm knocking on doors and they're like, yeah, we don't know if we're going to be closing our doors. We don't know what we're doing. We're not investing in training. I'm like, man, maybe I should go back. And then customers started calling me for cars and, I'm starting to like kind of like broker out deals and I'm starting to make some income. And it was a different path, but there was so much uncertainty. But one thing I said to myself is like, you know what? I have to give it a shot. And I have this saying, I don't know if it's appropriate, but you can't shake one ass at two weddings. I know that might not make sense, but if you think about it, I realized that I couldn't do both. I couldn't do the job and start my training, right? Because I'm the type of person, I'm going to give something 120%, right? So whatever I focus on, I'm going to give it my all. So how do I have this other thing that I'm kind of doing while I'm working in a dealership? So I know whatever I focused on, I knew I could make it successful. And then obviously we had the two businesses that kind of took off during the pandemic. And then one kind of lost steam and the other one took some priority over the other. And now we're here. So I don't think, and it's crazy because I would say I do have the mindset now, but there are times where I don't, and I question the mindset. And that's why it's important to have someone like you in your corner that says, hey, get back on track. What's your next step? And focus on the steps instead of the
outcomes,
the feelings and the outcomes that are around them. And like, just keep taking that one step further. You don't need, like they say, you don't need to see the whole staircase, just see the next steps in front of you.
I think Kobe Bryant said, it's like, you don't have to worry about the outcomes, just worry about what you're doing and the outcomes automatically happen.
Absolutely.
And so when I talk about you have to be ready, you have to be prepared, meaning like for those shitty days. That's what I was talking about. You don't have to be prepared. I mean, we did a million things that we weren't. If you bought a house, you weren't prepared for all the things that come with the house. If you had a kid, you weren't prepared. Like we weren't prepared. We do things, but we have to make a decision. And so you have to make a decision on what you are willing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, we teach that in our goal setting class, that it's not just about having a goal and having a path, but try to anticipate what the obstacle is going to be.
Yeah.
Because that's what kills people's dreams. It's not so much like, hey, I can do this or I can't do it. It's when the obstacle comes up and you're not prepared for it and you get this big punch in the stomach and you're like, oh, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
But if you're prepared and you can anticipate the obstacles and say, hey, and I tell people, listen, you're going to have bad months. You got to be ready for those bad months, right? But these are the things you can do to try to avoid them. So be prepared for the obstacles and then know when that obstacle say, oh, I knew you were coming.
That's it.
And now we're going to push through it. So I appreciate that. So finally, I want to, how can people connect with you? Because you have so much information. This is just a fraction of you do some incredible stuff with your retreats. I mean, it's great stuff. So how can people get in contact with you and follow you?
Yeah. So I always hang out on Instagram at jessicarivera.co, which is also my website. I'm also on LinkedIn and I'm on TikTok a little bit. But I'm mainly on Instagram for sure. And like you said, I do retreats. I do a lot of keynotes for large organizations. And, a lot of my clients are like, I get excited about it myself, right? I've done work with like LVMH, with Chase, with
you have the who's who of like clients. I see it, like Turner Construction.
Construction, which was like,
I was like cheering when I saw that. I was like, yes. I was like, I'm cheering for you.
All networking, but really understanding. And that's why I love communication so much, because I don't sell necessarily. I try to figure out, okay, how can I help, right? How can I?
Could you have imagined
Never, 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 never would I have imagined that I am speaking at SHRM is a huge HR organization, in front of 900 people. Never. First of all, even my parents are like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
Because I was terrible. I wouldn't even give a toast at a family function.
No, yeah. That's one of the things you've said, like, you weren't the speaker. You weren't
No,
the person that gets in front of the room.
no, absolutely not.
I'm super proud of you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being a part of this. This has meant the world to me. And
No, thank you for trusting me. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for allowing me to push back on you. Thank you for allowing me to push you. I mean, it really means a lot to me.
no, and again, this probably wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for your input. So, for people who do want to reach out to Jess, make sure you reach out to her. You'll see her contact information will be plugged in our caption here. So, Jess, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right.